I never imagined my mother-in-law's living room would become a battlefield, but here I was, staring down Joan as she hurled accusations at me like grenades. "You've bewitched my son." Joan's face was red with fury, her perfectly coiffed silver hair trembling with each accusation. "Peter was on track to take over the family business before you sank your claws into him." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Joan, I've done nothing of the sort. Peter made his own choices." "Choices?" she scoffed, cutting me off. "The only choice he made was marrying you, and look where that's gotten him." My hands clenched into fists at my sides. I'd endured months of her snide comments and barely veiled insults, but this was the last straw. "I love your son, Joan. I support him in everything he does. Why can't you see that?" Joan's eyes narrowed. "Love? Ha! You're nothing but a gold digger, Sarah. A nurse who thinks she can climb the social ladder by marrying into our family." The accusation stung like a slap across the face. I'd worked hard for my nursing degree, spent countless nights studying and sacrificing. To have it all dismissed so callously made my blood boil. "That's enough," I snapped, surprising even myself with the force of my words. "I've put up with your insults and your meddling for far too long. I'm here because I love Peter, not because of your family's money or status." Joan's mouth fell open in shock, but only for a moment. She recovered quickly, her voice dripping with venom. "How dare you speak to me that way in my own home? You ungrateful little—" "Mom? Sarah? What's going on?" Peter's voice cut through the tension as he appeared in the doorway, looking bewildered. I felt a flicker of hope. Surely now, with him here, things would calm down. But Joan was quicker. "Oh, Peter, darling." She rushed to his side, her voice suddenly syrupy sweet. "I was just having a little chat with Sarah about family values. It seems she doesn't quite understand our traditions." I gaped at her, stunned by how quickly she could switch gears. "Peter, that's not—" "Shh, dear," Joan interrupted, patting Peter's arm. "Why don't you go check on dinner? Sarah and I still have a few things to discuss." To my dismay, Peter hesitated only a moment before nodding. "All right, Mom. Just try to get along, okay?" And with that, he was gone, leaving me alone again with the she-wolf. Joan's saccharine smile vanished the instant Peter was out of earshot. "Now where were we?" She advanced on me, her voice low and menacing. "Ah, yes, I remember. You were just leaving." I blinked, caught off guard. "Leaving? But Peter and I—" "Are no longer welcome in my home," Joan finished, her tone brooking no argument. "I won't stand by and watch you ruin my son's life any longer. Get out, Sarah, and don't come back." For a moment, I was too stunned to move. This couldn't be happening, but as I looked into Joan's cold, unyielding eyes, I knew she meant every word. With trembling hands, I gathered my purse and coat. As I reached the front door, I turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Joan. Peter will hear about this." She smirked, triumph written all over her face. "Oh, I'm counting on it, dear. Run along now." The door slammed behind me with a finality that sent shivers down my spine. As I stood on the porch, the weight of what had just happened crashed over me. I was alone, cast out by my mother-in-law with no idea where to go or what to do next. And somewhere in the house behind me, blissfully unaware, was my husband, the man I loved, who had once again failed to stand up for me when I needed him most. As I sat in my car, staring at the house I'd just been thrown out of, memories of how Peter and I met came flooding back. It seemed like a lifetime ago now, but the irony wasn't lost on me. We'd fallen in love in a hospital, a place of healing, only for our relationship to become so sick. I remember the day clearly. I was on my rounds, checking on patients in the cardiology ward. That's when I first saw him, Peter, sitting by his father's bedside, worry etched across his handsome face. "How's he doing?" I'd asked, checking the monitors. Peter had looked up, his blue eyes meeting mine. "Better, I think, thanks to nurses like you." From that moment, something sparked between us. Over the next few weeks, as his father recovered, Peter and I grew closer. Coffee in the cafeteria turned into dinner dates, and before I knew it, I was head over heels. 6 months later, Peter surprised me with a picnic in the park where we'd had our first real date. As we sat on the checkered blanket, he took my hands in his. "Sarah," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "these past months have been the happiest of my life. I've realized something important." My heart raced. Was this it? "I've quit my job at the bank," he continued. "Wait, what?" "I'm going to join the family business," Peter explained, his eyes shining with excitement. "And I want you by my side. Will you marry me?" He pulled out a ring, a beautiful diamond that must have cost a fortune. My head spun. Marriage, the family business, it was all happening so fast. "Peter, Are you sure about this, quitting your job? His face fell slightly. Don't you trust me, Sarah? This is a great opportunity. We'll be set for life. I hesitated, the first seeds of doubt taking root. But looking into his eager face, I pushed my concerns aside. Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, I'll marry you. His kiss was sweet, but as he slipped the ring onto my finger, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of wedding planning and adjusting to Peter's new role in his family's company. I tried to be supportive, but I couldn't help noticing how quickly he deferred to his parents when I wishes, especially his mother's. Darling, Joan had said one evening, her voice sickly sweet, why don't you and Sarah move in with us after the wedding? It would be so much easier for Peter to learn the business. I opened my mouth to protest, but Peter beat me to it. That's a great idea, Mom. What do you think, Sarah? I forced a smile. I'm not sure. We haven't even discussed where we want to live yet. Joan's eyes narrowed. Well, if you're truly committed to this family, Sarah, you'll see it's the sensible choice. Unless, of course, you have other motives for marrying my son? The accusation hung in the air, sharp and ugly. I looked to Peter, expecting him to defend me, but he just stood there, silent. I think it's a wonderful idea, I finally said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. We'd be happy to move in. Joan's triumphant smile made my stomach churn. As she bustled off to make arrangements, Peter pulled me close. See, it'll be perfect. You'll get to know my family better, and they'll see what I see in you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The ring on my finger suddenly felt heavy, a shackle rather than a symbol of love. As I sat in my car now, staring at the house that had become my prison, I realized that moment was when everything started to unravel. I'd ignored my instincts, pushed aside my doubts, all for the sake of love. But where had that love gone? Where was Peter now, when I needed him most? With a deep breath, I started the car. It was time to face the truth, about Peter, about our marriage, and about the choice I now had to make. I stood in the foyer of Joan and Richard's sprawling mansion, my suitcases at my feet. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading since agreeing to move in with Peter's parents. Joan descended the grand staircase, her eyes gleaming with barely concealed triumph. Welcome home, dear, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I hope you're ready to prove yourself. I forced a smile. I'm not sure what you mean, Joan. I'm here because I love Peter. She waved her hand dismissively. Love is all well and good, but in this family we value more, tangible things. Her gaze swept over me, critical and cold. You'll need to show us you're not just after Peter's inheritance. My jaw clenched. I've never cared about money. Then you won't mind signing this little agreement, Joan interrupted, producing a document from seemingly nowhere. It's just a formality, really, to protect the family's interests. I took the paper, my hands shaking slightly as I read. It was a prenuptial agreement, but one that seemed heavily slanted in the family's favor. If Peter and I divorced, I'd walk away with nothing, not even my own savings. This is ridiculous, I sputtered. I won't sign this. Joan's eyes narrowed. Then perhaps you're not as committed to this family as you claim. What's going on? Peter's voice rang out as he entered the foyer. He looked between us, confusion etched on his face. Your mother wants me to sign a prenup, I explained, handing him the document. One that would leave me penniless if we ever split up. Peter scanned the paper, his brow furrowing. Mom, this seems a bit extreme. It's just to protect you, darling, Joan cooed. Surely Sarah understands that. If she truly loves you, she'll have no problem signing. I looked at Peter, silently pleading with him to stand up to his mother. But I saw the hesitation in his eyes, the way he glanced back at Joan. Maybe we should consider it, Sarah, he said softly, just to put everyone's minds at ease. My heart sank. This was the man I was supposed to spend my life with? Someone who couldn't even defend me against his own mother's machinations? Fine, I said, my voice tight. I'll sign it, but I want you to know, Joan, that this changes nothing. I'm here for Peter, not for your money. Joan's smile was triumphant as she handed me a pen. We'll see about that, won't we? As I scrawled my signature on the dotted line, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about proving myself anymore. It was about survival in a house that already felt more like a battlefield than a home. The weeks that followed were a blur of tension and unspoken hostility. Joan watched my every move, critiquing everything from the way I folded laundry to how I interacted with the household staff. Peter, for his part, seemed oblivious to the war being waged under his own roof. One evening, as we prepared for bed, I I couldn't hold back anymore. "Peter, do you even see what's happening here?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Your mother treats me like an intruder, and you do nothing." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's just protective, Sarah. Give her time, she'll come around." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "Time? How much time does she need? We're getting married in 3 months. Peter's face hardened. "Look, I'm caught in the middle here. Can't you just try to get along with her, for me?" In that moment, I saw our future laid out before me. Years of tiptoeing around Joan, of Peter always choosing his mother over me, and I knew, with a clarity that terrified me, that I couldn't do it. "I don't know if I can," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. Peter's expression softened. He pulled me into an embrace, but it felt hollow, devoid of the comfort it once brought. "We'll figure it out," he murmured. "I promise." But as I lay awake that night, listening to Peter's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. The question wasn't whether I could survive in this house. It was whether our love could survive Joan's machinations and Peter's inability to stand up for me. And for the first time since he'd proposed, I wasn't sure I knew the answer. The alarm blared at 4:30 a.m., jolting me awake. Another early shift at the hospital. I dragged myself out of bed, careful not to wake Peter. As I tiptoed downstairs, a light flicked on in the kitchen, startling me. "You're up early," Joan said, her voice crisp. I stifled a groan. "Early shift," I explained, reaching for the coffee pot. Joan's eyes narrowed. "Again? Peter mentioned you've been working a lot lately." "The hospital's short-staffed," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I go where I'm needed." Joan hummed, disapproval etched on her face. "And what about your duties here? The garden party is this weekend, and there's so much to prepare." I bit back a retort. The garden party, another of Joan's elaborate social events that I was expected to help organize. "I'll do what I can after my shift," I promised, knowing full well it wouldn't be enough. Joan's lips thinned. "See that you do. A wife's place is in the home, Sarah, especially when there are children to consider." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Children? Joan, Peter and I aren't even married yet." "Precisely my point," she sniffed. "You're not getting any younger, dear. It's time to start thinking about giving Peter an heir." The words hit me like a slap. I set down my mug, hands shaking. "That's not really your concern, Joan. Peter and I will decide when we're ready for children." Joan's eyes glittered dangerously. "Everything in this family is my concern, including my future grandchildren." I left for work with Joan's words ringing in my ears. The shift was grueling. A multi-car pileup had the ER overflowing. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. But there was no rest to be had. Joan was waiting, a list of party preparations in hand. "There you are," she said, thrusting the list at me. "The florist needs confirming, and the caterer had questions about the menu." I stared at her, disbelief washing over me. "Joan, I just worked a 12-hour shift. Can't this wait until tomorrow?" "Absolutely not," she snapped. "The party is in 2 days. Really, Sarah, if you can't handle a simple event, how do you expect to manage a household? Or children, for that matter?" "That's enough," I exploded, weeks of pent-up frustration boiling over. "I am not your servant, Joan. I'm a nurse, a professional, and my job saves lives." Joan's face turned cold. "Your job," she spat, "is to be a proper wife to my son, something you're clearly failing at." "What's going on?" Peter's voice cut through the tension. He looked between us, confusion evident on his face. "Your mother seems to think my only value is as a baby-making machine," I said, my voice trembling with anger. Peter's eyes widened. "Mom, is that true?" Joan's demeanor instantly changed, her voice softening. "Oh, Peter, I'm just concerned. Sarah works such long hours, and she's hardly ever home. How can she be a good wife to you like this?" I waited for Peter to defend me, to tell his mother she was out of line, but he just stood there, silent and conflicted. In that moment, something inside me snapped. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. Peter finally spoke. "Sarah, wait." But I was already moving, grabbing my keys and heading for the door. I needed space, needed to think. As I drove away from the house, tears blurring my vision, I realized I was at a crossroads. I loved Peter, but was love enough? Could I really spend the rest of my life caught between my career and Joan's impossible expectations? For the first time, I allowed myself to consider a future without Peter, without the suffocating presence of his family. And as terrifying as it was, a small part of me felt relieved. I pulled over, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. It was time to make a decision. Fight for my marriage or fight for myself? and as the sun set over the horizon, I wasn't sure which path I would choose. The annual Thompson family gathering was in full swing, the sprawling backyard of Joan and Richard's estate filled with laughter and chatter. I stood by the refreshment table, nursing a glass of lemonade, feeling like an outsider in my own family. Peter approached, a forced smile on his face. "Everything okay, honey? You've been quiet all day." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. How could I tell him that every moment here felt like slow torture? "Sarah, dear." Joan's voice cut through the crowd. She glided towards us, a group of well-dressed women in tow. "Come, join us. We were just discussing the joys of motherhood." My stomach clenched. I knew where this was heading. "Actually, Joan, I was about to—" "Nonsense," she interrupted, linking her arm through mine. "Ladies, this is my daughter-in-law, Sarah, Peter's wife of—" "How long has it been now?" 2 years, I said quietly. One of the women, a redhead with too much perfume, leaned in. "And no little ones yet? You two better get busy." The group tittered with laughter. I felt my cheeks burn. "Oh, we've been trying," Joan said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Haven't we, Sarah?" I stared at her, shocked. We hadn't been trying. Peter and I had agreed to wait, focusing on our careers first. What game was Joan playing? I stammered, looking to Peter for help. But he just stood there, silent and uncomfortable. Joan's eyes glittered with malice. "You know, Sarah, if you're having trouble conceiving, there are specialists you can see. I'd be happy to recommend someone." The implication hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Joan wasn't just pressuring me for grandchildren. She was publicly questioning my fertility. Something inside me snapped. "Actually, Joan," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "Peter and I haven't been trying. We decided to wait." A hush fell over the group. Joan's smile faltered for a moment before returning, razor sharp. "Oh, and why is that, dear? Surely you're not putting your little nursing job ahead of starting a family?" I felt Peter stiffen beside me. This was his chance to stand up for me, to put his mother in her place. I held my breath, waiting, but Peter just cleared his throat awkwardly. "Mom, maybe this isn't the best time." "No, Peter." I cut in, anger coursing through me. "Let's have this out. Joan, my little nursing job saves lives. It's not just a career, it's a calling. And yes, right now, it's more important to me than having children." Gasps echoed around the circle. Joan's face turned red with fury. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you. This family needs an heir, and if you can't provide one—" "Then what?" I challenged, stepping closer to her. "You'll replace me with someone more compliant? Someone who'll bend to your every whim?" Joan's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Maybe I will. Clearly, you're not fit to be a part of this family." I looked around at the shocked faces, at Peter's conflicted expression, and suddenly everything became crystal clear. This wasn't a family, it was a prison, and I'd been locked in it for far too long. "You're right, Joan," I said quietly. "I'm not fit to be part of this family, not if it means giving up who I am." I turned to Peter, my heart breaking at the confusion in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Peter, I can't do this anymore." Without another word, I walked away from the stunned group, through the house, and out the front door. As I got into my car, I could hear Joan's shrill voice calling after me, demanding I come back. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself, and as terrifying as the unknown future was, I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free. As I drove away from the estate, tears streaming down my face, I realized this wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the end of a book. And it was time for me to start writing a new one, on my own terms. The small apartment I'd rented felt like a sanctuary after the suffocating opulence of the Thompson estate. I'd been here for 2 weeks, ignoring the constant barrage of calls and messages from Peter. But as I stared at my phone, seeing his name flash across the screen for the 100th time, I knew I couldn't avoid this conversation forever. With a deep breath, I answered, "Hello, Peter." "Sarah, thank God." His voice cracked with relief. "Please, can we talk? Face to face?" Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect the fragile peace I'd found, but I owed him this much. "Okay," I agreed reluctantly. "The coffee shop on Main Street, in an hour." As I waited at a corner table, my hands wrapped around a steaming mug, I saw Peter enter. He looked haggard, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. My heart ached, despite everything. "Sarah," he breathed, sliding into the seat across from me. "I've been so worried. Please, come home." I shook my head. "Peter, I can't. You know that." "But why?" he pleaded. "We can work this out. I'll talk to Mom, make her understand." "It's not just about your mother," I interrupted. "It's about us, about who we've become together." Peter's face fell. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. When was the last time you stood up for me, Peter? Against your mother, against anyone? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, realization dawning in his eyes. Exactly, I said softly. We're not partners anymore. We're not even on the same team. I can change, Peter insisted, reaching for my hand. I'll do better, I promise. Just then my phone buzzed. A text from Joan. Stop this childish behavior and come home immediately. We have your prenup to discuss. I showed Peter the message, watching as shame and frustration warred on his face. She won't stop, will she? I asked quietly. Peter's silence was answer enough. I think. I swallowed hard, forcing the words out. I think we need to talk about divorce. The color drained from Peter's face. No, Sarah, please, I love you. I love you too, I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. But sometimes love isn't enough. As if on cue, the cafe door burst open and Joan swept in, her face a mask of fury. There you are, she hissed, marching to our table. I will not allow you to throw away this marriage over a temper tantrum. I stood, anger replacing my sadness. This isn't your decision, Joan, it's ours. Oh, but it is, she sneered, producing a document from her designer handbag. Or have you forgotten about this? My blood ran cold as I recognized the prenup I'd signed. What about it? Joan's smile was predatory. If you leave Peter, you leave with nothing, not a penny of your savings, not a stick of furniture, nothing. I felt the room spin. How could I have been so naive? That's not possible, I whispered. Oh, but it is, Joan gloated. So unless you want to start over with absolutely nothing, I suggest you come home and start acting like a proper wife. I looked at Peter, silently begging him to intervene. But he just sat there, torn and paralyzed. In that moment, I knew. This was it. The point of no return. Keep it, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Keep all of it. My freedom is worth more than any amount of money. Joan's triumphant expression faltered. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, I replied, grabbing my purse. Goodbye, Joan. Goodbye, Peter. As I walked out of the cafe, my heart pounding and my future uncertain, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had nothing, no money, no plan, no safety net. But for the first time in years, I had myself. And somehow I knew that would be enough. Little did I know, as I stepped onto the bustling street, that this was just the beginning of a battle that would test every ounce of my strength and resilience. 5 years had passed since I'd walked away from Peter and the suffocating world of the Thompsons. I'd rebuilt my life, piece by painstaking piece. My nursing career had flourished, and I'd found a peace I never knew possible. But as I stood in my kitchen, staring at the letter in my hands, I felt that hard-won serenity crumbling. Miss Sarah Thompson, it read, you are hereby accused of theft of the Thompson family heirloom, a diamond necklace valued at $500,000. My hands shook as I read the rest of the letter, detailing Joan's accusations and threats of legal action. It was absurd. I hadn't set foot in that house since the day I left. But Joan's vindictiveness knew no bounds. I reached for my phone, ready to call David, the lawyer who'd helped me keep my assets during the divorce. But before I could dial, a sharp knock at the door made me jump. Peering through the peephole, my heart nearly stopped. Joan and Peter stood on my doorstep, their faces grim. For a moment I considered not answering, but I was done running. With a deep breath, I opened the door. Well, well, Joan sneered, pushing past me into the apartment. Living quite comfortably on your ill-gotten gains, aren't you? I stood my ground, meeting her gaze. I haven't stolen anything, Joan. You know that. Peter at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Sarah, please, just return the necklace and we can forget this whole thing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Peter, I don't have your necklace. I never did. Joan's eyes narrowed dangerously. Lies. You've always been jealous of our family's wealth. Stealing that necklace was your final act of revenge. Revenge? I laughed bitterly. I left with nothing, Joan. I rebuilt my life from scratch. Why would I risk that for a necklace? Because you're a vindictive little gold digger, Joan spat, and I'll see you in jail for this. My mind raced. This wasn't just about a necklace. This was Joan's endgame, her final attempt to destroy me. And Peter, my once loving husband, was letting it happen. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Both of you. Now. Joan smirked. Or what? You'll call the police? Go ahead. Let's see who they believe, the respected Thompson family or the nurse who abandoned her husband. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up anger and hurt came rushing to the surface. You want to talk about abandonment, Joan? How about how you abandoned your son to your twisted idea of legacy? How you poisoned our marriage with your constant meddling? I turned to Peter, tears stinging my eyes. And you? You stood by and watched it all happen. You never once chose me over her. Even now, you're here, accusing me of theft instead of standing up to your mother. Peter flinched, guilt flashing across his face. But Joan was undeterred. Enough of this nonsense. Either give us the necklace, or we'll have you arrested right now. My heart pounded. I had worked so hard to build this new life, and now it was all at risk. But I refused to let Joan win. Not again. Do your worst, I challenged, meeting Joan's gaze. I have nothing to hide. Joan's triumphant smile sent chills down my spine. She pulled out her phone, presumably to call the police. This was it, the moment that could destroy everything I'd built. But just as Joan's finger hovered over the call button, a key turned in the lock. The door swung open, revealing a tall, handsome man holding a baby carrier. Sarah, honey, I'm home early. I thought we could. He stopped short, taking in the scene before him. Joan and Peter stared, open-mouthed. I felt a surge of strength as I moved to stand beside the man I now called my husband. David, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I think it's time you met my former mother-in-law. The room fell silent as David stepped inside, gently setting down the baby carrier. Our daughter, Lily, gurgled happily, oblivious to the tension surrounding her. Joan's face contorted with shock and fury. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, her voice shrill. David's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. I believe I should be asking that question, he said coolly. Why are you in our home, threatening my wife? Peter stared at the baby, then at me, his face a mixture of hurt and disbelief. Sarah, you're married? And you have a child? I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze steadily. Yes, Peter, I moved on. I found happiness, real happiness. Joan, recovering from her initial shock, sneered. How convenient. A lawyer for a husband. Did you plan this, Sarah? Set us up for some sort of trap? David stepped forward, his presence commanding. Mrs. Thompson, I presume. I've heard a lot about you. None of it good, I'm afraid. How dare you? Joan sputtered. Do you know who we are? I know exactly who you are, David replied calmly. You're the people who have been harassing my wife with baseless accusations of theft, and now you've invaded our home with threats of arrest. I should warn you, that's grounds for a restraining order. Joan's face paled. We have every right to reclaim our stolen property. What property? I interjected, my patience wearing thin. I've told you I don't have your necklace. I never did. Peter, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. Mom, where exactly did you last see the necklace? Joan whirled on him. What does that matter? She took it. But when? Peter pressed. Because I remember you wearing it at Aunt Margaret's birthday party. That was months after Sarah left. The room fell silent as the implication of Peter's words sank in. Joan's face flushed red, then drained of all color. I must have been mistaken, she stammered. David's voice was steel. Mrs. Thompson, false accusations of theft are a serious matter. Should we pursue this legally, I assure you, it won't end well for you. Joan's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her. For the first time, I saw her not as the terrifying matriarch, but as a sad, bitter woman, clinging to control. Peter turned to me, his eyes filled with regret. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have known. I should have stood up for you years ago. I felt a wave of emotions, anger, sadness, and finally, pity. Yes, you should have, Peter, but it's in the past now. David moved to stand beside me, wrapping an arm around my waist. I think it's time for you both to leave, he said firmly. As Joan and Peter shuffled towards the door, I felt a sudden urge to say one last thing. Joan, I called out. She turned, her eyes wary. I hope you find peace someday, and Peter, I hope you find the strength to live your own life. The door closed behind them, and suddenly, the apartment was quiet except for Lily's soft coos. I sagged against David, the adrenaline leaving my body. Are you okay? He asked softly, cradling my face in his hands. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. I am now. Thank you for being here. David smiled, kissing me gently. Always. As we stood there, our daughter gurgling happily in her carrier, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. The ghosts of my past had finally been laid to rest. David, I said, a smile spreading across my face, there's something I need to tell you. He looked at me quizzically. What is it? I took his hand and placed it on my stomach. We're going to need a bigger apartment. Lily's going to be a big sister. David's eyes widened with joy, and as he pulled me into a fierce embrace, I knew that this love, this family, this life we'd built together was all I'd ever needed. The journey had been long and painful, but standing here, in the arms of the man I loved, with one child beside us and another on the way, I knew that every step had been worth it. This was my happily ever after, hard-won and infinitely precious. And as David and I looked down at our daughter, planning for our future with excitement and love, I silently thanked the challenges that had brought me here. They had made me stronger, wiser, and ultimately had led me to the life I was always meant to live.